Well, hello everyone, and before I dive in with my professional serious intro, I've just got to give a huge shout out to Mrs. Fisher's class again, who makes that intro video such a dance party every time. We ought to hire you guys. You guys rock. My name is Jesse. I'm here with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, and if you're joining us for the first time, like several of our audience and our speakers are today, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. A big thank you to all our folks who joined us in February as well. It was our epic month solely celebrating the most amazing women in STEM on planet Earth. We did 50 broadcasts. You can check them all out on our YouTube page. So much to explore and discover there. But as we dive in with March, we are diving back in with epic conservation, and we couldn't be joined by a better team today because we are continuing our epic Wild Hope series. So last year, we partnered with the amazing folks at HHMI Tangled Bank Studios. They have done an incredible series featuring the most tangible, cutting-edge science working to preserve species and habitats on planet Earth. All those programs are on our YouTube channel. You can check them out there. We were joined by Derek Gow earlier this year, live in his farm in the UK. We've got some amazing programs coming up in late March and April. But I'm so pleased today because we are joined by the folks at Florida Atlantic University and talking specifically about protecting leatherback turtles. Leatherbacks are the biggest of the turtles. They're one of the most amazing creatures on planet Earth, and we're going to learn about some of the special science that the Florida Atlantic University team does to understand them, save them, and so much more. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in Jeanette and Emily. Welcome into the broadcast, you two, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, everybody.
Hi there.
So we've got kids in South Carolina, Nicaragua, Michigan, Ontario, and beyond today. It's a really, really nice big audience. And so many of them aren't familiar with leatherback turtles. Can you tell us a little bit about them before I dive in and play our Wild Hope teaser before we get underway?
Sure. So there's 7 species of sea turtles alive today. And, 6 of them are what we call hard-shelled sea turtles. And the 7th is the leatherback. And it's the oldest of all of the sea turtle lineages. It's its ancestors go back about 130,000 million years. And the species we have living today has the common name of leatherback, or in some cultures, trunkback. But the genus and species is Dermachelys coriacea, which means skin shell.
Ooh,
and,
they do look quite different than the other turtles, which is really neat. So yeah.
Yeah.
And how big are they for our audience's sake? We've got a bunch of grade 2s and 3s today. And what are we talking about for the scale of an adult leatherback?
7 feet. So that's about, let's see. Well, I'm 5'8". Emily's probably a little taller than that. But if either of us lies down next to a leatherback on the beach, we have turtle that's extending about a foot beyond our feet, and more than a foot of turtle extending beyond our heads. So that's a lot of turtle.
And they're, if I'm not mistaken, they can get up to about 2,000 pounds, something like that? Or
that would be a really big one.
Yeah.
Most of them are closer to, I want to say 1,400. But
is that all?
800 pounds, but that's a small one.
I love highlighting this because for our audience's sake, if we've got 20 kids that are in grade 3, like imagine your entire class, look around all the boys and girls in your class with you, all of you put together are the weight of one turtle, which is ridiculous that there's a turtle that can get that big. We're all used to things that are sort of in ponds close to home. I grew up in Ontario, turtle about the size of my hand. So like a leatherback is one of the most spectacular creatures on planet Earth, one of the things I most want to see. I love that as an intro, you two. And if you don't mind, I'm going to play our little Wild Hope featurette so we can get a sense of some of the work that you do there. And then we'll dive in with a little bit more. Awesome. Cool. Here we go.
These are leatherback sea turtles. We know so little about leatherbacks, especially at the hatchling and juvenile sizes. We've seen the populations of other sea turtles increase over time, especially due to different kinds of protections. But the leatherbacks especially are very mysterious and unknown. And you need to know about a species before you can help it.
we're starting to learn what route the turtles are going to take and what they're going to encounter along those long migrations. And each year we get a little more information about where these little turtles go.
There we go. We're back. Cool. Sorry, that was a little weird. By the way, we are going to highlight that world's most adorable satellite tag in just a minute. Every time we feature satellite tags, they're the best, but those are the cutest thing I've ever seen, and professional detachment is just out the window. But I want to harp on something in that video because you talked about them being mysterious, and these are the largest turtles in the world. So can you explain a little bit about how we don't know about where they go and where they are and all that good stuff?
Wow, it's it's a big turtle that even as a hatchling, it's a big hatchling. So most hatchlings are like this big, and leatherbacks are more like this big. And they grow pretty fast in our lab. But Emily, you want to talk a little bit about where they are not?
Yeah, so leatherbacks are really mysterious because as hatchlings, they go out offshore and then they just spend their whole lives out in the deep open ocean. So other sea turtle species, maybe like loggerheads, greens, hawksbills, they'll come inshore when they're younger and feed on, they'll feed on things like seagrasses and algae and corals and sponges and that kind of stuff. But leatherbacks, they spend their whole lives out in the deep open ocean. So we never really get to see them until they come back to nest as adult females.
Yeah. And I want to stress for our audience sake too, like I always use the blue whale as an example because the blue whale is the biggest animal ever to exist and we don't know much about them. Like this is a 100-foot animal that the ocean is so large, it's 70% of our planet, that it's really hard to track something like that. And we're just starting to piece that together with research like that of Jeanette and Emily here. When they're out eating, if they're not like the other turtles, what do they eat when they're out in the middle of the ocean? Do we know?
Oh, yummy stuff. They eat jelly animals and, so jelly animals like jellyfish and something called a salp, which is related to sea squirt. And they also eats another kind of more deep water animal called a pyrosome. The common name is a fiery body, but they're really jelly-like and they're just orange. They're not spicy. So that's a favorite. But stuff that lives down deeper, not on the surface.
How deep do they go to get it? So we've featured sperm whales here before, which classically go really far down to hunt things like giant squid. Are we having the leatherbacks going down like 1,000+ feet to hunt these things, or are they?
Some of the adults go down around 1,000 meters, but I would say that's most of the places they live. They don't have to go that deep. They can. Yeah. So we were really surprised. Even our young turtles were going down, 75 feet, 100 feet, a lot deeper than we thought. We think of little turtles as being kind of not that strong, but they're pretty impressive.
I'm a lot bigger than a baby leatherback, and with a scuba tank, I was kind of, 60 feet was about my limit. That's where I can go, and that's a bit much. So for something like this to go down that deep is very, very impressive.
And they're holding their breath. So
we have, worth noting for our audience, because there's a lot of confusion over sort of what can breathe underwater, what can't. Classically, fish have gills, they can breathe underwater. You've got a turtle, they do need to come up for air.
Yes.
How long can they stay underwater? Do we have a sense of that?
It kind of depends a little on what they're doing. So just like if you and I were just sitting at our desks, not really concentrating on anything and just for fun, we would hold our breaths. You might get a minute. Some of you are really, really good at this. You might get a minute and a half. I don't recommend you keep trying this unless you're already know what your capacity is. But if you were to go run around the block and then sit down and try to hold your breath, you wouldn't probably get more than about 5 or 10 seconds before you need to take a breath, because it's dependent on how active you are.
I've got to say, Dr. Waniken, the kids here are so excited to learn about turtles that they're all holding their breath. We are on the edge of our seat, literally, about this. So, kids, don't hold your breath. That's our lesson for the day. When they're babies, we have covered this in a few programs before. We've done a lot with the Turtle Hospital, also in Marathon, Florida. And so we learned a little bit about what the temperature is in the beaches when they're young can determine if they come out male or female. I've got a little video clip of that I'd like to play. And then if you could talk a little bit about that when we're done, that would be spectacular. Awesome.
Super.
Thank you so much. Let's cue this up and fingers crossed the audio comes through. It should, I swear. Let's see.
Like sunshine and sand, the sea turtle is really a staple here in Florida, but a new study is raising a lot of concern about the future of these beautiful creatures.
News Channel 5's Jason Hackett spoke to researchers about the troubling trend that they're seeing, and he's live with us right now. Jason.
Yeah, Jay and Shannon, these researchers say an increasingly warmer climate could eventually spell doom for turtle populations, not only here in our backyard, but around the world.
It's a little bit alarming.
Jeanette Weineken, a professor at Florida Atlantic University, says our sea turtle population could soon be in trouble, and climate change is likely to blame. The issue starts in the nesting stage.
That egg, when it goes into the nest, has no gender. It's the incubation environment that directs it to be male or female. Warmer temperatures produce females, cooler temperatures produce males.
But a recent national study is sounding the alarm, saying warmer temperatures are giving birth to turtle populations that are almost entirely female.
Down here we have a bunch of baby sea turtles that just hatched a couple of months ago.
Scientists at FAU's research lab at Gumbo Limbo have been crunching the numbers.
We estimate that over the past 10 years, over 95% of all the turtles that hatch in South Florida have been female.
Those are the animals that will become the teenagers who will become the adults.
But if there aren't enough males to mate with the increasing number of females.
Long-term concern is definitely that turtle populations could be increasingly imperiled.
Because of the large gap between birth and maturity for turtles, scientists say it could be decades before we see the impact. But Weineken says we shouldn't sit back and wait to find out.
It takes a village. It takes all of us recognizing that we have to be part of the solution.
Now, FAU researchers say there's still a lot of data that's yet to be gathered on these male to female ratios, but if things continue going in this direction, they may have to step in and do things like physically cool off the nests to ensure a higher male population. Jason.
Fascinating. And I want to highlight just two quick things. Gumbo Limbo is the greatest name of a place to have a research lab of all time, and those are the best turtle earrings I've ever seen in a video, so thank you for that in my day as well. So, are we doing this already? Are you breeding the turtles at your lab? Are you collecting nests that are already laid? How does that process all work?
Emily, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so we collect from nests that are already laid. So we have a team at Gumbo Limbo that goes out every morning and looks for new sea turtle nests. And when they find one that fits our criteria for our research project, they put in this little device called a temperature data logger that records the temperature inside the nest while the eggs are incubating. And then when that nest hatches, we collect 10 of the hatchlings and keep them and raise them in our lab. So we're studying what's happening on the natural beach to understand how many males and females we're finding and what temperatures they're being incubated at to create those males and females.
Super cool. And this beach that you're collecting them from, is it a protected beach? We featured a lot of programs on the baby sea turtles getting to the ocean. Sometimes they head towards the city, but there's too many lights there. There's a lot of predators that eat them. Where you're collecting them from, are they protected more broadly, or how does that work?
Well, we're on an urban beach, and it's a public beach. Parts of it are not easily accessible at night, but parts of it are. And so, we're lucky in the community pretty much embraces the turtles. They view them as kind of their responsibility. It's kind of, and we will go out at night when we're expecting our nests to hatch, and sometimes we're dealing with people who think we shouldn't be out messing with a nest, and we have to be permitted, and we have to have a lot of experience to do what we do. Which that's one of our jobs, is to train students to work with these animals as well. But it's part of it is dealing with a public that really cares about their natural resources. And so we're lucky here. Yes, there are predators. We try to protect them from predators. And but mostly the people are not the problem. It's urban lights and things like that. You're talking about them coming back, and the city's trying hard to kind of control that.
Well, for one, I want to say you've got volunteer trainee class 2025. If you need someone to get you guys coffee on the beach or anything, just let me know. I'm there so fast, make your head spin, because that sounds like the best job of all time. But this is true. It's the reason that programs like this are so popular. It's the reason that we do so many turtle programs, is that there's a universal love of these animals. Like they're so charismatic. They're so beautiful. People can do tangible actions to help work with them and sort of improve their populations. And we've got a few questions like that already coming in on YouTube. But I'm really fascinated with how you track them after they get into the ocean. So how you do this at the lab, how you do this in the field. And so I'm going to play one more clip, our last clip together, and then we'll dive in a little bit of that before we do a nice long Q&A with our audience. Let me cue this up for everyone. And fingers crossed, all goes super well with some of your amazing partners in this awesome video highlighting that satellite tracking extravaganza. Here we go.
This project is shining a light on a really important and poorly understood life, especially poorly understood life history phase. It's known in the turtle community as the lost years. That is the period from when a hatchling emerges from the beach until it returns as a mature adult.
We're the first to successfully put these tags on little leatherback turtles. Nobody's ever done that before. That is a big deal. Where do they go to grow up? What's their nursery area? None of that's known.
And then the third piece in all of this is the work of Mercator Ocean International and their team of ocean physicists and oceanographers and modelers who've been working with us to better understand the influences of oceanographic conditions on dispersal of hatchlings. And with this information, we hope that we'll be able to apply it towards conservation actions that will help to rescue some of these species and populations from the brink. I'd like to encourage you all to do your part for sea turtle conservation. And if you want to learn more, come visit www.upwell.org. That's our website where we share a lot of news about the work we're doing and the great work of our partners and collaborators around the world. And if you have the wherewithal and are able to give your time and contribute and volunteer to these organizations or provide financial support, that is, of course, very appreciated and much needed.
Super, super cool. I love every second of it. So,
Yeah.
Okay, why choose? They showed 18 that you started out with. How did that go? Are you on to a second thing yet, or was that the first test case? What's the deal in the process of getting satellite tags on turtles?
Well, it's a I guess what we call an iterative process. You try one thing, and this part works well. This part works sort of well, and then there's this little piece here we want to improve on. So the first ones we got, not as much data as we wanted. It turns out the antenna was not as strong as the engineers thought. So the next time around they came back with we did another year, and they came back with a better antenna and stronger antenna, and then they also were able to add a solar panel, so that meant that the tag was really light, and that's really cool.
Well, so speaking of the tag being light, we've already got some questions about this because it looks like a really long tag for such a tiny turtle. Does it fall off at any point? Does it put them at risk of being eaten by anything? Like, what do we know? I know we're trying to collect this data, and it's really important for the species as a whole, but for the individual babies, what's going on?
Yeah. So part of what we do here in the lab before the turtles go out is test, how long does the attachment last? Does it bother the turtle? Does it put them at risk of getting entangled in anything at sea? And so we do a whole series of tests in the lab before we ever put them on the turtles and let them go, because we're not there. But the tags are going to fall off. They're meant to fall off. Part of it is the turtles outgrow the attachment methods we use. That's something we know is going to happen. And so, because leatherbacks grow pretty fast, as it's, those tags really, the first ones only stayed on for maybe 2 weeks at most.
Okay. There
Yeah.
you go. And in the lab in the beginning, in that initial footage, you showed them on tethers, which we've done a lot of turtle programs where they're like swimming into the walls, and your system looks like you're just going to produce the most jacked turtles of all time because they're constantly swimming against this fake current you've got them in. How do you even design something like that? What's going on? It's crazy. Is it unique to you? Because I've never seen it anywhere else.
Yeah, we've tried a lot of different things. There's a lot of different ideas out there, but the one that worked best for us was putting them on a leash. And we know that they're gonna bump into the wall if we don't have them on something that keeps them from bumping into the wall. They don't recognize barriers, so they're sort of like oceanic sharks or whales or certain kinds of fish. When they're in the open ocean, there aren't any barriers. That's the environment that animal evolved in. So they really just don't recognize barriers, and their skin is really I wouldn't say it's soft, but it's vulnerable. So we need to take care of those guys.
I want to ask about their skin, and I promise, kids, I'm coming to you all soon. There's so many questions in the chat, which is awesome. Mrs. Fisher's class will come to you live in a second as well. Tell us about their skin, because a lot of turtles we sort of think of as this hard shell, sort of like a bone thing. I'm trying to think of a human analogy for it, but leatherbacks have a bit different. Is there anything that our kids would have touched in their lives that is like a leatherback skin?
A cucumber.
Wow, Emily, the fact that you instantly were like, yes. So, okay, kids. So sometimes the best methods work. The same thing that works for your dog works for turtles. Just the leash is perfect. And cucumber, go home, touch a cucumber, and tell your parents. And then eat the cucumber, and promotes healthy living. And you will have had a leatherback experience wherever you may be going from, even in the middle of a continent. Very exciting. Ladies, this is so much fun. We've got so many questions already that I'm going to dive in with that, unless there's anything you want to tell us, broad strokes about your work before we lead into our big Q&A period. Is there anything that jumps out that we want to feature for sure?
Well, it's not fast.
Okay.
We've been doing this for a number of years, and it's one of those things where we have students from the university that come in here and work with us. And the fun thing about having students is they think about things differently than we do. So we really appreciate their creativity as well as their questions and their ideas. And so that stimulates us to think about our science in a different way. And it also helps us advance the science.
So cool to think that for our students, you're in grade 3, you're in grade 4, we got some grade 11s today, you do school projects together with your friends. Well, when you're a little older, you can do school projects and you can help save turtles and do cool stuff in an awesome lab like Emily and Jeanette here. So there's no better lead to where you could end up than that, I think. And I really want to stress, if you want to learn more about the lab, they're here. They're on social media at FAU Marine Lab. There's lots more to explore and discover about the work that our amazing duo are doing here. So we're going to dive in with some questions. Mrs. Fisher's class, you're right at the camera, so you get to lead us off. Come on in and take us away. Oh.
Hi. How fast can a leatherback turtle swim?
Ooh.
I can tell you that it's about 0.9 nautical miles per hour.
Okay.
Now, I have to say that I in the past I've converted that. I think, if my memory is correct, it's something along the lines of about 70 centimeters a second.
Could we swim faster than the turtle, or is the turtle faster than us?
No, we can swim if we're in good shape. We can swim about the same speed as the turtle.
Okay.
I've done it. Followed turtles offshore. And I was always glad that I started with leatherbacks and loggerheads because they swim about the same pace. And the green turtles, they're a different story, but we're not talking about green turtles.
No, we're ignoring the green turtles. By the way, we're going to bury the lead. I just picture you leaping off the boat in an epic race with the turtle. You should film that next time and you'll get so much funding. Emily, I want to stress, we love when we stump the scientists and stump the experts here, especially our classrooms. But Emily, your face at the end of that question, it will be infamy meme for all time. I will send it to you when we're done the broadcast.
I'm very expressive. I'm sure there'll be a few more moments in this broadcast.
All right. So many great questions in our chat. Okay. Caesar in Nicaragua has a question, and he's referencing something that is one of my favorite creatures of all time in history. are the biggest prehistoric turtles, the ancestors of the leatherback. And I'm going to put the name in the chat in a minute. Archelon is the biggest turtle ever. It's like the coolest creature ever. Do we know how they relate to leatherbacks or no?
They're not in the same lineage as leatherbacks. They occurred at the same time as some of the ancestors of leatherbacks. They started a little earlier. They overlapped a little bit with the ancestors of leatherbacks, and then they went extinct, and the leatherback lineage proceeded on. So that's direct ancestor. It's more like a cousin.
More like a cousin. I want to stress for our Southern Ontario crew, we do have a bunch of folks there. I grew up in Toronto at the Royal Ontario Museum. They have an Archelon skeleton up, and it's like the most awesome thing you've ever seen in your life. And it's right beside the Quetzalcoatlus, and it's just the best duo ever. And I'm going way off on a tangent here. We got two great back-to-back questions from our YouTube chat. So Miss Coburn's class, they're in Hamilton. They want to know, what are some of the threats to the leatherback turtle? So we featured a few of these, but if you could tell us broad strokes, what are the challenges they face?
I would say the biggest one is something called bycatch, which means that they're accidentally caught by fishermen. They're not trying to catch turtles; they're trying to catch something else. But the leatherbacks are in the same area, and because they're air breathers, if they're entangled in lines and can't get to the surface to breathe, then they die, and that's a long-term problem. So that, and it's in all the oceans. So that's a big deal, because if the adults die out, or the juveniles that are going to become the future of that species, that means fewer eggs will get laid, and those animals won't be there to participate. I would say that's a big one. The other one is warming climates.
So we featured this earlier, and again, the sort of with humans whether we're male or female is determined by our chromosomes, so XX or XY. In turtles and several other species, it's based on that temperature. So if beaches warm up, you end up with a lot more of one gender than the other, and it can really be a challenge for species. So I'm really glad we covered that. And on the bycatch note, we featured this in a lot of our programs. One thing that all classes can do, because it's one of our next questions, in the United States, the Marine Stewardship Council, so MSC, in Canada, Oceanwise, you can look for a little symbol beside fish products at restaurants and grocery stores, and that means that it was harvested in a sustainable way. So they're probably not catching things like leatherbacks. They're not doing sort of unsustainable fishing practices. That's one thing that we can all do to do a little bit of help. But on that note, our 4B ballers in Charleston, South Carolina, a city I've always wanted to visit, they want to know, what's the best way that we can help? So for our students that are in grade 4, maybe they're on a coast, maybe they're not, what can they do to help take action to help protect leatherbacks?
Well, I mean, one of them is what you just mentioned. Make sure that if you're shopping or your parents are shopping, make sure they're buying sustainable products. Another is protecting their habitat. So if there's an area, there are areas in the ocean which are what we call migratory corridors, where the animals, we know they're going to go through at certain times of year. We know they're going to be vulnerable to those. Either encourage and work with fishers. The fishermen don't want to catch them. Having a really pissed off 1,000-pound turtle on your boat when you're trying to catch something that's not a turtle is a problem for them. So they would rather, or even having a 1,000-pound dead turtle on your boat is something that they don't want to have. So encouraging knowledge of the fishing products. And if you know fishermen who are working offshore, talk to them.
Yep. This is something that we've actually covered all over the world. We've covered it in West Africa. We've covered it in Indonesia, off North America. Like, there's a lot of interest right now. As you said, when you're doing turtle stuff on the beach, most people are on your side. They're excited to help out. They're excited to learn more. Most fishermen do not want to be catching things, not just for the danger of that animal, but they don't want to contribute to reducing the species of something like a leatherback, but they're spectacular creatures. They just want to catch fish that people can eat. So there's been a lot of innovation in net design and how fishermen operate, and it's led to a lot of really positive outcomes for species around the world. So I'm really glad we got that question. And thanks, guys, in Charleston. So many questions. Mrs. Fisher's class, I'm coming back to you guys next. If you want to head up to the camera, you can. We've got a fairly easy one from Lexi at Dalewood in Hamilton. How old can leatherbacks get? They seem like a pretty big, long-lived creature.
We don't know definitely, but in general, animals that grow fast tend not to live as long, and so we think of the hard-shelled turtles as living maybe 70, 80 years.
Wow.
And the leatherback probably about 45 to 50.
Wow, it's still like it's such an incredible amount. And again, our students might know this from turtles. Finding Nemo certainly talks about turtles living a very long time, but most creatures on this planet are not living in the 70 to 80 year range. People are very spoiled and we get to get that old all the time, but turtles, that's pretty impressive. 40, 50 is up there. So thank you for that, guys. Mrs. Fisher's class, you're at the camera. Come on back in Carsonville. Hey.
Can people come in the lab and help hold the turtle?
Best question. That's what I want to know too. Great question.
So like Dr. Weineken was saying, we bring in undergraduate students from our university and they can come in and help us with the turtles, and they are involved in every aspect of it. So handling the turtles, feeding them, making their food. We don't take volunteers just from the general public because there's a lot of permitting that goes into working with endangered species. But there are all kinds of other nature centers that once you're old enough, you can volunteer at and get experience helping to take care of animals, learning cool stuff about them. But our biggest thing is letting undergraduate students, so kids who are students who are in college, will come in here and do it for class credit and get to help take care of the turtles.
I'm really happy you mentioned this because it's really exciting, the idea of going in and volunteering in a lab like yours, but it's very important that you have people that are professional, that know what they're doing, that aren't going to cause harm. And this is true across the world of conservation. Like if you're interested in elephants or bats or turtles or whatever, there's a lot of experience that goes into that. And so kids, I recommend go to zoos, go to aquaria, go to the amazing facilities, go in the wild and see these creatures. And then if you want to be involved in a project like this, learn more and end up in a position where you could be like one of those undergraduate students, which leads beautifully into our next question. So the question was, what field of study do your students and workers come from? Like if you wanted to be you, Emily, what would you have to do?
So most of them study biology or environmental science. We do have some programs where we bring in students from totally different fields. We have an outreach team, outreach and education. So we have students who are in journalism. We had an art student who did like ceramics and pottery. So you can really have any background to get into a lab like this. It's just really interest and commitment. But if you want a career in this kind of work, you would want to study something like biology or environmental science.
Yeah. So there you go, students. We've got a few grade 4s, grade 3s today, so it's going to be a while for you yet. But if you're nearing high school, take biology, take chemistry. It'll lead you to that. I'm a zoologist by background, so that was my educational path too. The more the merrier, and then head on over to the lab and find out and get involved. We've got one fairly easy question. How many eggs are in a single clutch of leatherback sea turtles? So when they lay eggs, what are we talking about here?
Emily's the expert. I can answer it, but she can answer it better.
Yeah, so leatherbacks typically lay less eggs per nest than the other species. So I'd say around like 75 or 80 is what I would expect to find in a typical leatherback nest, while other species are more like 100 or sometimes like 120.
Yeah.
Wow, it's still incredible.
Biggest clutch you worked with?
Probably close to 100.
Yeah,
Okay.
Occasionally,
Like
it's a range.
Yeah, some of them it's been like 50 eggs, some of them 100.
I'm an only child, so the thought of sharing my nest with like 100 others is just way, I don't want anything to do with that at all. But that's very, very impressive from our turtle thing. And so a quick query on the eggs when they come back, or the turtles when they come back. Do leatherbacks do what other turtles do, which is famously come back to the same nest that they were born on to lay their eggs? Do we know that or not?
It's that one's, we have to, first of all, decide they aren't coming back to the same spot. It's the same region, so plus or minus 70, 80 miles. Leatherbacks is plus or minus 400 miles. It's really the same region, and there are individual nesting turtles that'll come back to the same spot. But do we know that they hatch there? No. And we actually now, through some really cool genetic tools, know that there's some loggerheads that have been tracked through genetics to know that which nest where the kids went and when they grew up, and they're spread all over. So they're just in the same region that would produce that genotype.
So students, again, the level of cool genetic things that are being used to understand species and where they go around today is awesome. I don't know specifically what that is. eDNA in water samples is amazing. We've had scientists come on talk about using leeches to find out what animals exist in a rainforest so you can't find them. So it's like the cutting edge, coolest time to ever be a biologist of all time ever. So if you're keen, keep studying, and you can end up like our amazing duo here. Now, ladies, time flies and you're having fun, so we are nearing the end of the broadcast. I want to encourage our classes again, Wild Hope TV. I'll pass along the full episodes if you want to see more about the Leatherbacks. This is on our YouTube channel, of course, and there's all sorts of stuff about the FAU Marine Lab that you can use as well. But before we bring in our class to say a big thank you and farewell and get our kids at home screaming and yelling and annoying the principal on YouTube, is there any last message you want to leave us with about your lab before we say goodbye?
We have a visitors gallery area where anybody can come through. It's at no charge. It's in the we're at the Florida Atlantic University Marine Lab. We are one of the 4 partners in the Gumbo Limbo Environmental Complex, and so it's a park. It's a nature center. There's a sea turtle rehab hospital. There's an aquarium, and then there's FAU Marine Lab. And the FAU Marine Lab, we take telling you guys not only about turtles but sharks and seagrass and lionfish and all other cool animals in our visitors gallery. And so come visit if you're able to come to Florida.
I'm coming. I'm getting on the plane right now. Emily, you're dripping with passion about Leatherbacks as well. Is there anything you want to add to that before we bring in our class?
I actually have a more general thing to share. So I talked about how you can study biology or environmental science to get involved in a career like this, but you can study a lot of different things and still get involved. So if you like math, we need statisticians who can analyze the data that we're collecting. If you like art, we need people who are able to help us tell our story and use art in that way. If you like reading and writing, some biologists aren't good at reading and writing, so they need help with someone to share their information in a way that everyone can understand and not just scientists. So if you're interested in the environment or animals and that kind of thing, even if maybe you're not good at biology, and that's okay. You can find some other way to get involved.
Yeah. One year we had a business major come, and
cool.
he did a business plan for how to run a lab. And that was great.
There's no better message than this. And we hear this from NASA explorers, Arctic adventurers, and beyond. It's so nice to hear it from the turtle context. So like whatever your skills are, students, if you're passionate about something like protecting leatherback turtles, you can get involved. And I hope you do. I want to say a huge thank you to all our audience across North America today and beyond for joining us. And we certainly hope to have you two back soon. And what we do to wrap up every broadcast, I'm going to bring in Miss Fisher's class to say rock us goodbye and farewell. Do stick around when we're done as well. But Mrs. Fisher's group, thank you so much for joining us today. Everyone, have a wonderful day. Farewell.